Good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar. Today we have with us Eider Fernández from Zaha Hadid Architects. Welcome, Eider, and thank you very much for participating in this webinar.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, she will talk about the office complex of the Sbebank Technopark, Moscow, in which she has worked and she's still working. And this is a project which is currently under construction, as she will tell you now. So first, I'm going to introduce a little bit Eider in order to let you know who she is. She joined Zaha Hadid Architects in 2013 and became an associate in 2017. She has over 14 years of experience working on a variety of project typologies ranging from residential, educational, mixed-use, transport infrastructures, and master planning. Prior to Z8IA, she worked for Santiago Calatrava in Spain and in the US, where she gained a broad experience in large-scale projects, complex geometries, and customized construction solutions that respect the design intention. Now she's going to talk about this project which she's working on, and as I told you before, it is under construction now. So welcome, Eider, again, and the word is yours.
Thank you very much, Clara, for the introduction. As you were mentioning, I have been working in this project in Moscow for the past 4 years now. It has been a long process. It was actually a project that we won in a competition. And it took some couple of years between the competition and the design stages. And luckily now it's under construction. I have to say that we are very lucky that it has not been affected at all by the COVID situation all around the world. In general, at Zaha Hadid, we are very used to work in this situation, remote situation. For sure, not from your living room, but most of our clients are in different countries. So we are very used to this system of connecting and having meetings online constantly. Like for the past 4 years, all my client meetings, or 90% of my client meetings, have been online. So it has prepared us luckily for this situation now. So if you like, I can show you a bit about the project now, and then we can keep on talking about how is the profession so overtaking this. Oh, sorry. So as I mentioned, this is a building for a bank, the Sbebank. It's one of the biggest banks in Russia. And at some moment, they announced a competition to design a building for their new innovation department. And it was going to be located at the Skolkovo Innovation Campus, which is outside Moscow, about 20 kilometers from the city center. And this building will have capacity for 14,000 employees. So when we started this competition, and at that time, the population was slightly smaller, but still it was consistent. There was a limitation in height for the building, and we didn't want to have a very spread building where you will need to walk almost kilometers to go from one department to another. So one of the things that we really wanted was to have a very compact building, and we decided to have this kind of compact shape, like more square shape. It just has a point that stretches and opens up to the park that sits in front. So for the office space, I think that the idea of the small cubicles that was in the 60s, 70s is long behind us. Nowadays, the office have a different mood. You have different spaces. You may need to work in a team, or you need some privacy moments. You have calls, meetings, large meetings, small meetings. So basically, you need to distribute a lot of different spaces, and for 10,000 people, it's a lot of spaces that you actually need to place in this building. So one thing that we did was to assimilate these different type of spaces to vortex fields and to study how they interact. So the theory is that when two vortex rotate in the same direction, they create a common field. And when they rotate in different directions, they create a corridor in between. So you can see a bit in some of these animations how the weight in one vortex or the other will affect the field that creates around it. And we also study the possibility of some of these fields being dynamic and what will it happen to the rest of the fields when some of these vortex move along the space, because we wanted to have a very fluid interior space. So the result is this kind of very fluid and organic landscape that is carved in the building. So just to give a bit of an idea, the short facade that is here on the east, it's 150 meters long. That is normally larger than an urban block. So to give an idea of the scale of this building, we have 160,000 square meters of office space above ground, and there's another 100,000 square meters of basement for parking and all the technical rooms. But the most important thing that we wanted to create, it was this fluid space where you can delimitate different environments without the need of partitions. You can have a different space, you can combine them, separate them, and have just seamless circulation in between them without having to install walls and partitions everywhere. We also tested that we can have many different layouts on them, so they can work for a very regular system where you just have like rows of desks, or a more fluid and organic way of placing the desk, a more irregular shaping. So the office space is calculated to have 10 square meters per person, which is already a good space. And hopefully, if any COVID regulations need to apply in the building by the time that this opens, we will still have a very big capacity in the building because it was designed already in a very generous dimension. So it's also something that we were looking at is that this building may be used 24 hours per day because such a large population of workers may have different shifts. So it will create a constant activation of different points in the building. And you will be able to see people moving from one to another and see people congregating in one space or another. And when we had such a complex interior, when we went to the point of designing the facade, we thought that the perfect match for this, it will be a simple in a way, but just glass facade, full glass. Also, one important aspect is to bring as much natural light possible inside the building. So to have a full glass facade, it's the best way to achieve this situation. As you can see, like it's just a modular facade. It's mostly the same profile going away. It has with some small interruptions where we have the entrances of the building. But in general, I mean, there are some points of complexity, but in general, it's just a single facade. Of course, in Moscow weather, to have just glass facade is a bit challenging. So in this case, it's triple layer glass panels to achieve the comfort that is required inside. So these are some of the studies that we did once we have set the facade and the volume, because an important thing, obviously, for an office space is to have natural light. There is by regulation, of course, but also by any means of comfort. You need a minimum level of natural light to all the working spaces. So we did a lot of studies of how much the light was penetrating inside the building. One thing that we were adjusting, it was the height of the floors. This floor to floor is 7 meters tall, this building. So one of the things that this creates is such a deep plan that when you look across, you need to feel that the ceiling is not oppressing you. So that's why the space is considerably higher, like floor to ceiling is almost 5 meters, which it's a good 50-60% extra than any standard office. But the thing is also a matter of proportions. You know, when you have such a big space, you cannot have just a standard 3.5 meters office ceiling. Then there's a whole study for the comfort, the ventilation, the air circulation along the facade to guarantee the comfort inside. And this is the entry point to the building. It happens in an area that we call the canyon. So it happens in not around the building, but in the center of it. And there are two mirror entrances. And as you can see, there are some glass bridges that cross this space. These are the connection between the two main blocks of the offices. So you are entering in a point of activity. It's not just a perimeter access. And this is the space that you will access when you enter the building. This is the main atrium of the building. And as we were discussing, one of the things that we needed was to bring natural light to the building. So this atrium has several functions. One is to bring natural light to all this space. Another one is orientation, because in such a big space, you need to be able to just look around and see, understand where you are and where are you going to. So this space creates that. And it also accumulates most of the part of the breakout spaces, you know, where some of these areas along the corridors will be just for a small casual meeting, or you can find a colleague there and have a casual chat, even a coffee together. But as you can see, the office space, it's an open environment and bright. Something that we didn't want is 10,000 people is a community, or 14,000 people, which is actually the final population of the building. So it's a big community, and we wanted everybody to feel part of this community. You know, that you take a lift, you go to your desk, and you don't interact with the rest of the people, or just with your small department. So we wanted to abolish the idea of having offices for the bosses or for the upper management. Still, there is a bit of hierarchy, as the upper management of the bank will sit in the upper floor, but it's an open space. You can actually see the space from other floors. So the visual relationship increases the feeling of belonging to a community, and we highly believe that it creates a stronger will to work, and workers feel better when they feel they belong to something, that if they are just isolated in their desk working. So we have also some other spaces around the facade that we call the winter gardens. These are mostly breakout spaces. So for all these people working here to have their lunch break, to gather with a friend and just have a coffee, we have these spaces that will have some vegetation, more casual furniture, and normally they have this vertical visual connection that also enhances the idea that all the building is just one unity and not a strata of levels. And something that we developed, and I think it's more visible here. So the structural system, as I mentioned, floor to floor is 7 meters tall, but also something that was important for us in this scale, it was to have very large spans between columns, not to have a forest of columns. But we took the idea of forest and we actually made the columns assimilate to natural trees. And the idea that the trees open up and the columns are opening are actually reducing the span of the beams, allowing us to have the columns a bit farther apart. And we actually have the columns every 21 meters, which are really large spans, and gives all this freedom for the office space. So you don't have to fit. We didn't want this to become like a parking that you need to place like 3 desks between columns or things like that. So the idea of these columns is that they are very much apart, and Also, they open up as you go in the above in the levels. I'm not sure it's visible here, but the ones in the bottom level, they are just like a cone. And as you go up in the levels, the branches start being more visible and they finally open up in the upper level. So they also work a bit for wayfinding to understand where you are, in which level of the building you are. And as I mentioned, the building is under construction. This was the site 1 year ago. This basement, it's about 100,000 square meters floor plan and 18 meters deep. So it was a really long excavation to achieve this moment, but this was last month. So it's actually working fine. They had to stop construction for about a month during March, April because of the virus situation also in Russia. But once the situation improved a bit in Russia, they just went back on site and they have been working since then. So hopefully by 2023, this will be the final result and we will be able to go and see the building. That's all.
Thank you so much, Eider. It was so interesting and really, really inspiring. Actually, it's like, it's amazing. I have no words. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I guess it's important to think that in this time where everyone is at home and we cannot go to any office, maybe in a near future we could go to a place like this in which we could find these structures, which seems like the nature, the trees, you know. So I loved it.
Thank you very much.
I was going to ask you about, well, right now, because of the situation with the pandemic and everything, what do you think the spaces from now are going to be designed? Because I guess this project, you designed this project before COVID came, and maybe because of the kind of restrictions we are having right now, such as social distancing or separations. As we saw in this project, everything is open, and maybe you have partitions and they are just glass partitions, so they just let you see the other people, but not to breathe the same air.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, what do you think about ventilation and all this stuff about the air? How it works? Does it work better in partitions or in spaces which have a lot of partitions, or do you think it's better to be in open spaces where the air can flow?
To be honest, this is something that we have not really looked in detail yet. I think the architectural profession is well known for changing very slowly and adapting slowly to this kind of big changes in society. You know? I think also there is a perception, I would say, that this is a temporary situation, that there will come at some moment a solution will come. Either the virus will slowly die or the vaccine will come available for everybody. So I think that most people think that we will go back to the former normal, not the new normal that we are adjusting now. But in any case, probably by logic, I will say that it makes more sense to have a smaller space with a stronger ventilation. Or when you have very large spaces, I think that the air moves too freely from one side to another. And if we are considering something like a contagious situation, probably you need to subdivide it. Probably it's just reducing the risk. It may be the same. To be honest, I'm not the expert in this case. I could probably will need engineers to actually study this. But I guess it works like in planes. No, you can have the forced ventilation on top of you, but there is still a minor risk that this thing can spread up and down in the plane.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. And I was going to ask you also, how do you see the situation from your study from Zaha Hadid Architects? Is it affecting you a lot, or is it how is it going there? How do you see it, the sector of architecture with the situation of the pandemic?
Well, I think that in general, the sector has suffered a lot because when there is this kind of situations of uncertainty, uh, architectural projects are expensive investments. So in any case, when there is a bit of uncertainty, it always affects some clients decide to stop for some time the project. They are not sure. I'm pretty sure that everybody is suffering this in one way or another. I have to say that in our case, we have been really lucky, and we only had one or two projects that got actually affected by it. But in generally, we have managed to keep all of our projects going on. One of the things that we are lucky is that we have quite a big market in China. And while China was a problem in January to March, from that moment, they just went back to normal, to real normal. And all of our projects there are just continuing. Then we did have a couple of projects. We had one project in Russia, actually, that was a concert hall that was about to start the design stage. But because it was public funded, the government needed that batch of money to fight COVID. So no money, no project. That was easy. But the project is there, and I'm pretty sure that it will come back. But there are also some other things, that all these cultural buildings, we don't know if in 3 years' time there will be new regulations that say that seats need to be more separated. So the space that you have for 1,000 people auditorium now is going to be for 600 people. And will that be enough for the investment? Like the whole business plan is what gets affected mostly. So I think that makes the clients a bit unease, and some of them prefer to stop a bit and to see what is happening. I think in our office we don't do much residential, for example, but I understand that people still need houses. So residential market probably is still moving, maybe a bit slower. But I don't know. I think that I know many companies that have been struggling. So it's true that this is affecting not just the architecture, no, any business. But I have to say that we have been really lucky, and for us so far it's going well.
I'm happy for you then.
Thank you.
And I was going to ask you also about how you told us last day when we were talking that in your office you already had a lot of meetings, online meetings, and you were used to it. So how this provision, or how this situation has led you to be in a better position in the pandemic,
I think
because you
for
were
us,
used to it.
no, it's true. Like many of our client meetings, besides when we have a like a presentation that either the client comes here or we go to visit the client, but most of our client meetings happen online. And even most of our meetings with consultants, for example, happen online. I think the challenge for us has been the internal meetings and things like the design reviews, design process, because we are used to be around the table, piece of paper, a pen, and everybody sketching on top of the same thing until you reach a solution. So this with a screen and a mouse does not work the same. That part has been a bit more challenging, but I think that thanks God we have all this technology, like if we consider this 15 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible. So at least I actually remember when I was working at the Calatrava office, we will receive most of the design directions by fax, which is something no one else uses anymore. but thanks that we have the technologies, we are in general used to use them. But the difficult part is, and I guess everybody's suffering pretty much the same, that all of your meetings that used to be a casual conversation in the office, now it's something that needs to be scheduled. 2, 3 people, are you connected? I don't hear you. You are mute. Your connection is not good. So we are all getting familiar with this, but in any case, like there is always these technical problems that happen.
Of course, there are. Yeah, so thank you so much, Eider. It's been a pleasure to have you here with us this afternoon. Thank you so much to everyone who was watching this webinar. You will be able to watch it later if you couldn't be alive. So thank you so much again. And I hope everything goes okay and we can go back to the office soon.
Thank you very much, Clara. And I hope that the fair is going very well and that all the products from Havik are actually probably this place is really good companies that are involved here. So good luck with that too, to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to just make a reminder for all the people who is listening. We are right now having our virtual fair. So if you want to visit us, you just have to register and then access the fair. And then you will be able to chat with the manufacturers. And well, we will wait for you there. So see you soon. Thank you so much, Eider, again.
Thank you, Clara. Talk to you soon.
Okay.